ready for this?
Hi everyone, Resin Dragon here, and thank you so much for tuning in. So today we're going to talk about finishing work. I know, it's not really exciting, but sometimes very necessary and oftentimes not even talked about. First, and one of the easiest, is doming. When your resin cures, it shrinks inward and can leave like a divot in the middle. So what you can do after it's done curing is mix up another batch of resin and simply fill it in. And something I've learned while doming is sometimes it's easier just to leave it inside the mold to dome. Even though you're very impatient and you want to see your work, it's probably easiest just to leave it inside. You can also use this technique to bring back the shine, but it can be very messy and not really necessary for every project. Next, hand sanding, filing, deburring, right? A deburring tool only costs about $20, and it's when you first pull out your project and you notice it has some sharp edges, you can actually use a deburring tool to get rid of those edges and smooth them out. After you take down the edges, you may want to round them off, right? You could simply just use a nail file that has multi-grits on it. Hand sanding and polishing is by far the cheapest way, but it can be a very long process if you have multiple projects or a really large project, and quite honestly, very tedious. Next, an orbital sander. It's super easy to change the discs, and at about $90 really isn't a bad price point. The bad part is it needs two people to operate. One person to stabilize it and hold it upside down, and then the second person actually sands the item. And it can be just killer on the hands. And it can be a bit messy when wet sanding. And I find that this item actually has better uses on larger projects, such as a table. And I did use an orbital sander on my very first table to get the drips off the bottom of the table. Now, if you have a bench-sized belt sander, you certainly could use it, but honestly, I wouldn't go out and buy one for this use. First, you would have to hold the item upright to be able to sand. You wouldn't be able to use that circular motion to get a random pattern. And not to mention, changing between grits doesn't look easy or cost-effective. The smallest price point that I've seen, a decent size, which is a 4-inch by 36-inch belt with a 6-inch sander, was about $179 at Home Depot. So what did we end up with? Well, I learned from YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and even Discord forums that dice makers like to use pottery wheels. Who knew? How would you use a pottery wheel for sanding? Well, you could either use sticky sanding discs to stick them straight to the wheel, which is machined, by the way, so it is guaranteed to be flat, or you can cut your sandpaper to size, or Zona polishing paper, and tape it down to the wheel. What is really awesome is you can wet and dry sand on this thing. Because it's made for pottery, it has a basin in it to contain all of the mess, and you could simply wipe it down with a cleaning wipe. The best part is you don't need help to use it. It could be a one-person job, and it's not some intimidating piece of machinery that you know nothing about. Now, the one that I have, I got on Amazon, and it has an 11-inch wheel, which is one of the largest ones out there, and it costs about $140, and there are some that are smaller that do cost less. It runs at a lower RPM rate, which gives you more control over the item, and is variable speed, so you can go low to high, whatever you're comfortable with. It's super simple to use. You can put it on top of your workbench, or you can sit on the floor to use it. Overall, this pottery wheel has been an amazing game changer, and I highly recommend it for any resin artist or hobbyist. Now that you're done sanding, onto polishing because you want to get that mirror finish back. And unfortunately, I don't have any tools to mount a polishing pad onto the pottery wheel, so back to the Orbital sander I went. However, if you use the right products, you won't be there for very long. The first one that I tried was called Flitz. It came highly recommended from many resin artists. It cost about $20 at Hobby Lobby, and it did a really good job of removing small surface scratches, but it never really gave us that mirror finish that we were looking for. Then I heard about Meguiar's Plastics. It cost about $10. I got it at my local auto parts store, and its intended use is to polish up plastics on your car like your headlights. And guess where I found out about it? Dice makers. And this worked wonders. The resin actually started to get its original shine and luster back. Now, it wasn't completely shiny like when I first poured it, right? But considering where I started in the sanding process and what it went through, it looked pretty good. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I didn't run it through the Zona papers long enough on the pottery wheel, right? But it is only my first attempt at polishing, so hopefully the more that I do it and perfect my technique, the better results I'll get later. But if I had to choose between the Flitz and the Meguiar's, I would choose the Meguiar's every single time. So thank you so much for watching today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, and if you're new here, I would really appreciate the subscribe. So until next time, why don't you pour one for me?